Rachel Morgan was 36 years old, a former U.S. Army Logistics Staff Sergeant, and for the last 5 years I'd been teaching emergency preparedness at our county community center in western Pennsylvania. My 8-year-old daughter, Lily, had spent 3 evenings weaving a blue paracord bracelet around a tiny brass compass she insisted her grandparents would love. She called it a never-get-lost bracelet. At exactly 6:42 p.m. on April 14th, my phone rang while that bracelet still rested on the kitchen counter beside a birthday card. 48 minutes later, I was kneeling beside a silver emergency blanket under flashing police lights, staring at the bracelet hanging from Lily's trembling wrist, wondering how my own parents had become the danger. What I didn't understand during that drive was that the storm outside wasn't the one that had nearly taken my daughter. The real storm had started decades earlier, inside the house where I grew up, and I had spent most of my life pretending it was simply called family. Growing up in our house, strength wasn't measured by kindness or honesty. It was measured by how little pain you admitted feeling. My father had a sentence he repeated so often that my brother and I could mouth the words before he finished them. "The world doesn't care about feelings." He said it when I cried after falling off my bicycle at 9. He said it when my brother broke his wrist playing football. He even said it at my mother's funeral 11 years ago, after cancer took her in only 6 months. Every disappointment, every fear, every tear received the same answer. The world didn't care, so neither should we. The strange thing was that I believed him for years. Military life almost rewarded that belief. During my 12 years in uniform, emotional control mattered. Panic got people hurt. Calm saved lives. But there was one lesson the Army taught me that my father never understood. Discipline was never supposed to replace compassion. Real leaders protected the people under their responsibility before demanding anything from them. Somehow I learned that lesson while he never did. Lily was everything my father considered too soft. She rescued injured birds. She cried during animated movies when lonely characters finally found friends. She named every plant in our small backyard garden and spoke to them while watering them each Saturday morning. She believed broken things deserved another chance. The blue bracelet was entirely her idea. "Grandpa gets lost driving sometimes," she whispered one evening while carefully tightening another knot. "If he wears this, maybe he'll always find home." She smiled with complete sincerity. She didn't know he had once laughed when she cried after scraping her knee. She didn't know he believed fear built character better than encouragement ever could. And the hardest truth for me to admit was that I had spent years quietly excusing those moments. I called them generational differences. I called them old-fashioned parenting. I told myself he meant well even when Lily came home quieter than before. Looking back now, I wasn't just someone he had hurt. I had become someone who helped normalize it by staying silent. When Lily asked if she could spend Saturday evening with Grandpa, I hesitated for almost a full minute before finally saying yes. I convinced myself one ordinary family visit couldn't possibly go wrong. That was the lie I would regret more than any mistake I had ever made in uniform. The following Thursday, I confirmed every detail of Lily's visit with my father. At 8:14 a.m., I sent a text explaining that I would drop her off at 4:30 p.m. and return by 7:30 p.m. He answered with a single thumbs up. At 12:06 p.m., I texted again to remind him that severe thunderstorms were expected after sunset. He replied, "We'll be inside." I even called at 3:18 p.m., putting the conversation on speaker while my neighbor, Denise, helped me pack Lily's overnight backpack. My father repeated that everything was fine and promised to bring her home if the weather turned dangerous. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't assuming. Every plan existed in writing and had been spoken aloud. When we arrived, Lily ran toward the porch holding the small gift bag with the blue compass bracelet inside. My father smiled in the reserved way he always did and accepted it without opening the package immediately. For one hopeful second, I thought maybe this visit would be different. Then he looked at the dark clouds gathering over the western hills. "Kids today are sheltered," he muttered. I frowned. "The forecast says hail is possible tonight." He shrugged. "The world doesn't care about feelings." The sentence landed with the same dull weight it always had. I almost answered. Instead, I reminded him that Lily became anxious during thunderstorms because lightning had struck a tree near our house the previous summer. He waved his hand dismissively. "I'll handle it." Those 3 words should have set me back up the porch steps. Instead, I kissed Lily on the forehead, reminded her I'd see her after dinner, and drove away believing written plans and common sense were enough to protect my daughter. By 6:55 p.m., the first weather alert buzzed across my phone. Wind gusts had already reached 43 miles per hour, and radar showed the storm moving faster than expected. I sent my father another message asking if everything was all right. No response. At 7:11 p.m., I called. Straight to voicemail. My stomach tightened. 7 minutes later, at exactly 7:18 p.m., my phone vibrated with a text message. It contained only 9 words. "She's outside. Let the storm teach her." Dad. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. The kitchen suddenly felt impossibly quiet. On the table sat Lily's crayon drawing from earlier that morning, a picture of our family standing beneath a rainbow, with tiny blue bracelets on everyone's wrists. Beside it rested the empty gift box that had held Grandpa's compass bracelet only hours earlier. Outside my window, thunder rolled across the valley. Inside my house, everything stopped. Then my military training took over before panic had the chance. My heart accelerated, but my thoughts became perfectly ordered. I grabbed my truck keys, emergency trauma bag, thermal blankets, waterproof flashlight, and first aid kit from the hallway closet in less than 20 seconds. While dialing 911, I calculated the fastest route to my parents' farmhouse, mentally identifying every flooded low crossing I needed to avoid. I wasn't driving toward a disagreement anymore. I was responding to what every instinct I had developed in 12 years of military service recognized as a child in immediate danger. Rain hammered my windshield so hard that the wipers disappeared beneath sheets of water every few seconds. The 17-mile drive normally took 26 minutes. That night, I reached my parents' farmhouse in just under 18, slowing only once for a fallen maple branch blocking part of County Road 19. Every movement felt automatic. Scan the road. Check mirrors. Control breathing. Keep thinking. When I turned into the gravel driveway at 7:36 p.m., my headlights found Lily exactly where my father's text had promised. She stood alone beside the old wooden fence, soaked from head to toe, her pink raincoat lying several feet away in the mud. Lightning flashed behind her, briefly turning the entire yard white. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't even crying. She was standing perfectly still with her small hands folded together, as though moving without permission might somehow make everything worse. I threw the truck into park before it had completely stopped. "Lily." She looked toward me with exhausted eyes. "I stayed where Grandpa told me," she said quietly. I thought that was the brave thing. Those words hit harder than the storm itself. I wrapped the silver emergency blanket around her shoulders while checking for injuries the same way I'd assess soldiers after field exercises: airway clear, breathing steady, no obvious fractures, skin dangerously cold, fingers beginning to lose color. Her lips trembled, but she never complained. Behind us, my father stepped onto the porch with his arms crossed. "She'll survive," he called. "The world doesn't care about feelings." For the first time in my life, that sentence sounded smaller than the little girl standing beside me. I didn't argue. There wasn't time. I carried Lily to the truck, turned the heater to maximum, and handed the dispatcher our exact location while requesting paramedics meet us at the intersection 2 miles away. As we drove, Lily rested against my shoulder and whispered something that has stayed with me ever since. I didn't want Grandpa to think I was weak. I felt every year of my childhood collapse into that single sentence. Suddenly, I remembered being 10 years old with a sprained ankle after a softball game, walking home because my father said limping built determination. I remembered hiding tears during basic training because admitting fear felt like betraying the lessons I'd learned at home, not because the army demanded it. I remembered defending him to friends who quietly questioned the way he treated children. The pattern had always been there. Only now could I see it clearly. The hardest realization wasn't that my father had endangered my daughter. It was that I had spent years translating his cruelty into discipline because admitting the truth felt impossible. I wasn't only the victim of his beliefs. I had helped them survive. That realization stayed with me long after doctors confirmed Lily would recover completely from mild hypothermia. The physical danger ended that night. The deeper damage had started years before, and I had unknowingly carried part of it forward. Sitting beside Lily's hospital bed just after 10 p.m., watching her sleep with the blue compass bracelet still clutched tightly in one hand, I made myself a promise. No tradition, no family expectation, and no childhood loyalty would ever matter more than the safety of my daughter again. The next morning, I called the two people I believed would surely understand. My older brother answered first. After listening in silence, he sighed and said, "Don't make this bigger than it is." Dad was trying to teach her confidence. She wasn't seriously hurt. An hour later, my aunt repeated nearly the same thing. Families survive by letting things go, Rachel. For years, those words would have worked. This time they didn't. The first person who reacted the way I needed wasn't family at all. It was Captain Elena Brooks, the officer who had supervised me during my final overseas deployment. After hearing everything, she paused for several seconds before saying quietly, "Protecting your child is never an overreaction. Anyone asking you to choose peace over safety is asking the wrong thing." That sentence gave me permission to stop defending the indefensible. 2 days later, I made one final good faith attempt. I sent my father a calm message offering family counseling, supervised visits with Lily after a genuine apology, and the chance to rebuild trust slowly. There were no accusations, no threats, and no deadlines. His response arrived 11 minutes later. "If you tell anyone, don't expect this family to stand with you again. You're turning one lesson into a public spectacle. The world doesn't care about feelings." Reading it, something inside me finally became quiet. Not broken. Free. I stopped trying to earn a safe place inside a system that had never protected its smallest members. Instead, I built a different one. The first Saturday of every month became our new family tradition. Lily and I checked emergency kits together, replaced flashlight batteries every 6 months, practiced storm drills, and ended each session by hanging her blue compass bracelet beside the front door before dinner. It reminded us that courage wasn't pretending danger didn't exist. Courage meant preparing for it together. I even mailed my parents an invitation to join us whenever they were ready. They never answered. Months later, on Lily's 9th birthday, nearly 30 people filled our backyard, neighbors, teachers, former Army friends, and children laughing beneath strings of white lights. Someone later told me my parents had hosted their own formal family dinner that same evening. The table was beautiful. Only 5 people attended. Halfway through our celebration, another summer storm rolled across the valley. Before I could say anything, Lily calmly gathered the younger children, led them into the garage, handed out flashlights from our emergency kit, and explained exactly why staying away from windows mattered during lightning. Every child listened. No panic. No tears. Only quiet confidence. Watching her, I realized she had learned resilience after all. Not because someone abandoned her in the storm. Because someone chose never to leave her there again. Almost a year later, my parents appeared at my front door without calling. I welcomed them inside after making them wait several minutes, not out of revenge, but because my home no longer operated on urgency or intimidation. My father tried guilt first, then obligation. Neither worked. Finally, his shoulders lowered, and he asked the only question that sounded completely honest. "Does Lily still fear me?" I told him there was only one condition for any future relationship. He needed to earn her trust, not mine. What they said to each other that afternoon remains private. Their conversation lasted 23 minutes behind the living room door. When it ended, both of them had been crying. Months later, during the season's first rainfall, my father quietly accepted instructions from Lily while helping replace supplies in our emergency backpack. Before leaving, he clipped the blue compass bracelet back onto its hook beside the front door without being asked. That small gesture didn't erase the past. It simply acknowledged a different future. Today Lily says she wants to become a search and rescue medic someday. Every time dark clouds gather, she smiles, checks our weather radio, and reminds everyone where the flashlights are stored. The storm that almost broke our family became the reason we finally learned how to protect one another. Because children never become strong by being abandoned in the rain, they become strong because someone loves them enough to walk into the storm beside them every single time.